Hey guys, I just wanted to spend a few minutes real quick going over my Merp mod tune for my 2010 WRX. And so first off, you have this Merp mod control panel, and you can enable these different mods, hacks. So fueling, timing, boost, mass airflow mode, map blending mode, map switch input mode, wideband sensor input mode, fuel pressure sensor input mode. So like fuel hack enable, that's just a simple enabled disabled setting. Timing, same thing. Boost, same thing. Mass airflow mode, you have several different options. MAF dual scaling, which uses a dual two MAF scales and interpolates in between the two. And then you have just regular stock MAF sensor, speed density, and then MAF dual scaling. So those are the options there. I'm on a MAF dual scaling right now. And then you have map blending input mode. You can select, depending on what vehicle you have. If you have an STI, you would have, click on that real quick. You have TGV right, TGV left, and disabled. On some of these, mine's on TGV left. On some of these, so that's map blending mode, which, so to my TGV left, I have my ethanol sensor. And then the map switch input mode, if I want to switch maps, which I don't. You have SI drive, TGV right, TGV left, or disabled. So most people would switch that to SI drive in order to switch their maps if they wanted to, but the WRX doesn't have that. And then you have the wideband sensor input, same thing here. You have several different inputs that you can use, rear O2, TGV right, TGV left, or disabled. I have my wideband, excuse me, I have my wideband sensor to my rear O2. And then fuel pressure sensor is to TGV right now. And so then you have a default map blending ratio. Default being 0, generally is E0 or E10 if you're going to run flex fuel. That's what this is mostly about. And if you were going to default to E85 or E100, you would put map blending ratio to 1 there. And then you have a map blending input, or map blending scaling, which is right there from 0 to 5 volts. I had to make a little adjustment on mine since I'm using an Arduino. There was a slight adjustment down low, but it's basically the same scaling, just I modified the voltage values for 0. And then you have a smoothing factor that you can apply, which is just a smoothing of its of the reading that it's applying, measuring and applying. And so then you have the default map switch, which mine's just a sport, but you can do sport, SI drive, intelligent, and then again a smoothing factor for that, and then thresholds high and low. The wideband sensor smoothing factor, mine's at 100 right now, so it'll just kind of take readings less often and smooth things out a little bit. Wideband sensor scaling, I'm running the AEM UEGO, and so I have that scaled appropriately, and that comes into play for the fail-safes. You can have this ROM monitor that wideband sensor reading, and if a lean condition, which you can set, occurs, so say the AFR was leaner than 12.0 at a boost greater than 10 psi, let's say, it would flash a check engine light and you would know something was wrong. And then fuel pressure sensor, so you can configure that. Then you have the map blending curves, and so you have open loop, closed loop, timing, knock, wastegate, boost, and then mass, airflow, and speed density. And so basically these two are on curve 1, curve 2, curve 3, curve 4, and I have all my curves set to the same. So E0 and E10 are basically running the same timing, same fuel, same boost, and then as it gets up to E70 and above, it's all running the same timing, boost, and fueling targets. So that's those. And then the Merp mod injector scaling, this is what I was asking a question about on my Guild of Subaru Tuners group the other day, because while you have these that are blend curves for fueling, open loop, closed loop, timing, boost, this is actually what's going to scale the injectors appropriately for your different ethanol contents. So basically at E10 I have it set at 1. So the injector scaling that I have placed down below in the stock ROM area will be multiplied by basically 1, and so it is what it is. And then as you increase ethanol content, the injector scaling will be multiplied so that the proper amount of fuel is injected. And that's basically how flex fuel works. Be able to fill up with any level of ethanol and still hit the proper AFRs and targets. And then of course you just have 2 tables for everything: primary open loop fueling, table 1 and table 2 for the 3 different modes. Mine's default to sport, but I go ahead and I enter the same values for all of table 1 and all of table 2, and then everything just like up here above. It talks about the open loop fueling curve, and it's set to curve 2. It's going to look at what the ethanol content is, and then it's just going to average between these two based on what it's measuring. And it's the same thing. These are the startup enrichment multipliers, which I have set. So the startup enrichment and the cranking, they're all set to the same. And so as you increase ethanol content, you want to increase your the amount of fuel that you're initially dumping in on cranking to help start the car. And so that's what that's for. And then map blending, so that's cranking, or that's tip-in enrichment, cranking. The oxygen sensor, I didn't mess with either of these. I just left them stock. The oxygen sensor is stock on the front. And then you have timing, again, tables 1 and 2 for everything so that it can average out between E0, E10, and E85, E100, however you want it set up. Knock control, same thing. I have it adding a little bit more timing advance on the, I'll just show you real quick. So on my intelligent map, it's basically adding about 5 degrees pretty much everywhere. And then on my table 2 intelligent map, which is the E60 or E70 and above, it's going to add 6 degrees. Is the way that mine's set up right now. And then you have wastegate duty cycle, so you can have your per gear boost and per gear wastegate for both E0 and E70 plus for my map. Per gear target boost. And then here's that mass airflow sensor scaling 1 and 2. So I have 2 tables. They're different in the higher end. In the lower end, they're pretty similar. but in the higher end they're different as I'm running more boost, and so it will just interpolate between those two for the high end of the ethanol content versus the low end. And engine load smoothing, engine displacement, that's all speed density stuff. And then you have your fail-safe triggers. So if it sees too much knock, you can set the triggers, the thresholds. If it sees too much knock, it will flash a check engine light. IAM, if the IAM drops to a certain level, it'll flash the check engine light. EGT, I don't have an EGT sensor hooked up. I could, since I relocated if I went to speed density, then you could use the MAF as another input, the MAF sensor as another input, and have EGT, but I don't have that hooked up right now. And then engine coolant temperature threshold, so it'll flash a check engine light. So these are basically just a bunch of fail-safes that will be set to what you would consider to be the threshold of an unsafe value, and then your car would flash a check engine light to let you know something was wrong. Right here's that lean boost that I was talking about, wideband sensor. So if it triggered, if it saw a certain boost level at a certain AFR that was lean, it would trigger that check engine light. So those are all those fail-safe actions. And then you can set the speed counts for those different check engine lights, the duration and the number of counts and how fast it flashes. And then you have the advanced launch control that you can set up. So just your basic rev limit red line, rev limit launch control. You can set it to a lock, or you can set it to an automatic mode where you can actually set up the fuel enrichment at the different miles per hour up to say 5 miles per hour. And then you can, if you put it in lock mode, you can just have it target a particular timing value. So I have mine set to say -7 degrees timing on launch control. And then in automatic mode, you can set it to different timing values based on the miles per hour. And then it also has the actual, where is that at? There's a fueling right there, launch control. Fueling mode is unlocked right now instead of automatic. And then you can just set it to a commanded AFR. And then flat foot shift mode. I have mine on static. You can also have that on automatic, where it will predict the correct RPM to set for flat foot shift mode. I just have mine on static set to, I believe, 6,000 RPMs. So static limit is a 1200 offset from redline. And then you can enter your gear ratios for your transmission, and that's how it determines the automatic flat foot shift mode. And that's pretty much it.